Take yourself in a time machine to the day you're on your deathbed and tell yourself at that day that you could come back to this very moment and live in this body with your health and your kids and your house and your wife and all the things you have in this moment. And you could do whatever you wanted with this moment. Like, how would you feel in that moment to do that?
Hey there, welcome back to Above and Beyond, where excellence meets elevation. I'm your host, Jan Simon. And this season, we're raising the bar, diving into the passion, purpose, and defining moments of leaders who don't just aim high, they live there. Big ideas, real stories. Let's get into it. On this episode of Above and Beyond, where excellence meets elevation, we sit down with a man who's lived a life defined by bold pivots in purpose. Born and raised in McHenry, Illinois, he began his journey as a documentary filmmaker working with National Geographic and producing films that highlighted global conservation and geotourism. But after years behind the lens, his story took a dramatic turn. When the pandemic forced his Illinois restaurants to close, he packed up his family and started over in Arizona, a leap of faith that led to Vero Chicago Pizza, now a growing brand with multiple locations and more than 75 employees. Today, his focus is on leadership and personal growth, following his 1% method, the belief that small, consistent improvements compounded into lasting change. From capturing the world's wonders to cultivating people and community, his journey proves that transformation starts close to home. By being the best father, husband, leader, and friend you can be, this is a story about resilience, reinvention, and the drive to go above and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Carstens.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, or afternoon. I don't know why I said good morning.
Quite an introduction.
There you go. So, hey, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to come on. Like we were talking before we jumped in, literally this is just an open conversation about you, about your journey to get to where you are today. And so I always like to start with early life. Tell me about young Joshy, or tell me about Josh as a kid. You grew up in McHenry, Illinois. Were you born and raised there?
Yep, born and raised in McHenry, Illinois. It's a town that I like to say has more cornfields and churches than about anything else. So neighborhood was surrounded in 3 cornfields, an outdoor movie theater, about 20,000 people, and everybody knows everybody type of feel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How many people is a pretty small town?
Yeah, 20,000. I think there's 30,000 people there now.
Okay. So it's not tiny, but it's not large.
Right, yeah. So you walk around and you see people in the grocery store, and they're talking to my mom and dad, and go to the grocery store, and you're chatting up conversations throughout the room.
Cheers, where everybody knows your name.
Right.
So you grew up there, play sports?
Did a little bit of everything, as most kids do, soccer, baseball, things like that. My parents were really big into golf. They've been very active in the golf course. It's called McHenry Country Club. I had a club in my hand by the time I could walk.
Oh, nice.
So I was on the course quite a bit. I played on the high school team as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was probably
You still play now?
Time to time, but
not like you used to.
I have the theory that the less you play, the less bad habits you pick up. So
Probably true.
Slice tends to go away the less I play.
We just back from Myrtle Beach, the Above Par Network for the trip out there. We're starting a chapter, but we played, and the third day that we played, it was raining super hard. So I had my rain gear on, which I haven't worn in who knows how long, and it was restricting my shoulder movement because my shoulders have gotten a little bit broader. And I started thinking I need to get like a strap that holds my shoulders and my back together, because I was hitting the ball much straighter and further than I typically do. So
I could see you with a leather belt around.
Right, exactly. Just hold it all in tight. Right. You played some sports, graduated high school. Did you go off to college after high school?
Yep. Graduated in 97, went off to the University of Montana. We visited a number of different schools throughout the country, and my dad and mom really grateful that they gave me a chance to look at a number of different schools that I was accepted to. We actually physically went to the university, took a little run around the quad and whatnot. 4th and 5th, I think it was the 5th location I looked at was Missoula. We're on the plane flying in, and if you haven't been there before, it's an amazing valley. There's 3 rivers that come into it. They meet in the valley there, and when the plane comes in over the valley, it has to do a circle as it's coming to land. It can't just come right in. So you're really getting a nice view of that valley, and it's beautiful. Have you ever seen the movie River Runs Through It with Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Or Legends of the Fall, for example? That's all filmed near Missoula there.
Oh, wow.
And to be honest, I just was really excited about the skiing and the hiking and the mountain,
Nice.
the mountain life, fishing and whatnot. And I was originally a geology major, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And found out after about a year or so you had to be pretty talented at math, and pivoted pretty quickly.
Nice,
away
okay.
from that. I mean, I was looking forward to doing, a lot of that outdoor thing. So I was envisioning myself as like a rock hound, climbing off of a mountain, rappelling and trying to find a fossil or whatever.
Yeah,
but in fact, it's a lot of just math and calculation. So I said to myself, okay, let's try and figure out something else.
Do something a little different.
Right.
As you were growing up, and did you end up playing sports in college, or did you just go to do college?
So I was there to get my undergraduate. Did a lot of skiing, mountain hiking, climbing, rappelling, different types of outdoor activities. I mean, so a lot of people in Montana have this vibe of just chucking all your gear into a car, driving out into the mountains, and spending 3 or 4 days out in the mountains with,
nothing.
Yeah. It's like, all right, here's your tent, here's your sleeping pack. I'll just sit next to a creek and just kind of figure it all out, climb to the top of a mountain. So there was a lot of that mountaineering vibe when we were in Montana.
That's nice. I remember, so I grew up in Washington State, and I used to do quite a bit of that stuff. I fought fire for a while with the Forest Service. But there was where I went to college, there was a canyon, had a river through it, but you drive down the canyon and you could hike kind of up the hill, and there was this rock outcropping that sat out, and I used to go out there and climb up the hill to that rock and just sit there.
Oh, amazing.
Look at the river, and just, and more of I didn't think of it as a meditation, but that's probably what I was doing. It was more just get away from things and think, but there's something about nature.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I was just saying it the other day, when you're in the mountains, it makes you feel like all your troubles are so small, they're so minuscule.
Yeah.
They're just dots. We're like little ants on this earth.
Oh, absolutely.
And you just need that sometimes. You need a slap in the face just to say, hey, listen, your problems aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Just relax. And I'll say that I spent a lot of my time away from the studies my freshman year, so I had some,
some party.
Yeah, at the end of my freshman year, I had to have one of those get real kind of conversations with my parents. Went to a life coach as well that summer after my freshman year, and really turn things around academically. Obviously, you can't graduate college unless you get your act together. So it was just figuring out that moderation of adventure and and everything else, and plus obviously focusing on schoolwork.
And that was the Missoula side, right?
Yes.
Is that Grizzlies?
So that's the Grizzlies.
Okay, I was trying to think. Yep. So, because I grew up in northeastern Washington, but a beautiful country up there. I mean, that whole. Do you miss the mountains and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I was looking at pictures of cabins in the mountains before I walked in here. So yeah, it's God's country. It's the Big Sky, they call it, right on the border of Idaho and Montana, right there on the western side of Montana. South of Glacier National Park, if you've ever been there, I highly suggest checking it out. It's probably one of the most beautiful parts of the lower 48.
Yeah.
Alaska's got a number on the height of the mountains and everything else, but Montana's just unbelievable. Oh, it is very grateful,
gorgeous. Yeah, and that up there along the Panhandle, and I can't think of the highway that drops down into, is it Coeur d'Alene up there? That basically in the middle of summer you're going to hit snow. It feels like every time I've driven that pass, I can't think of what it is, but it's just gorgeous up there. I fought fire in Washington, but then I transferred down to northeastern Oregon, so I was up in Prize and Joseph, Oregon, which is kind of right up against Idaho on the west side. But we spent quite a bit of time fighting fire out in Missoula, Billings, obviously Boise in Idaho, but gorgeous country. I mean, and steep. I think the thing that's crazy to me, and it's almost like my mind has forgotten. My parents still live in Washington, but out here, everything's so open. I mean, wide open. Even when you get up in the mountains, the trees, it's like they're not on top of each other. And you get up into the mountains in the forests up in northeastern Washington, northern Idaho, northwest Montana. It is so thick. It's just, amazingly thick, but beautiful country.
Right.
So growing up, you just said you kind of had to have I'll call it a little bit of a come to Jesus meeting after your freshman year of college. Was there anybody as you're growing up that influenced you with regards to what you thought you wanted to do, or directionally, or helped you out with regards to, keeping the straight and narrow? Or were you pretty much a problem child from the beginning?
It's funny you say that. My dad wrote an autobiography recently, and he talked a lot about he was growing up, how he, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but he tended to have trouble listening to authority figures and whatnot. We always have that, and I think my dad was my hero growing up, and I looked at what he was and what he accomplished, and his ability to take challenges and overcome them. And how do you think? I always looked up to him as being the guy in town that could get things done, and I was blessed to be his son. When I was in college and going into the first years of my adult life, I had trouble identifying who I was, right? Because a lot of the time I always look back and I looked at my dad like, okay, what he did was something special. I had to live up to that, like that mantra or that reputation. So when people would see me, they'd say, oh, there's Kit's son, or, oh, hey, you're Kit's son, right? So they didn't mean anything by it. That's how they know me, right?
Yeah.
But it's tough to find your identity in a small town when you're identified by someone else, right?
For sure.
And, I mean, this is a small pond, right, kind of thing. You're a little minnow in a small pond. But at the same time, you fall into that reputation. And my dad's even told me this. He's like, the best thing you could have ever done was leave town and to expand your life. I've done that several times. I've lived in a number of different places around the country, working to reinvent who I am at that portion of my life. We all have different seasons in life.
Yeah.
I was really struggling to figure out who I was, what I was going to do, because I think a lot of people at that age, obviously they're trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be, right? What do you want to do? Who are you going to be? A lot of times people as adults ask you, like, what do you do for a living? Like, they're not like, hey, who are you? It's
right.
What do you do for money?
Yep.
Right? And my issue, believe it or not, was I had too many options. I felt like sometimes kids in a small town, or like when you have limited options, you have the choice of three things to do. So it's left, right, middle. Like when somebody gives you three different colors to paint your house with, your room with, right? You have this color, this color. Well, then you walk into that paint room and there's like 400 different options of beige, and you're like, I have no idea what. And so that was kind of the issue that I had at that time. I think that I had the tools, I had the support of my family, really do whatever I chose to do, and I couldn't focus the bullseye, so to speak. The bullseye was so wide that when I throw the dart, I couldn't place in my mind what I ended up wanting to be. So it was a lot of, tapping into this, tapping into that, trying to feel things out to see what worked. And never was really able to make that real connection thing until I was able to find journalism and photography, diving into that. So I don't want to.
No, yeah, you're good. So I feel like I'm really relating because I'm going to ask you a question because I tend to talk too much. But do you ever wish? I mean, in that, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question. Do you ever wish somebody would have narrowed it down for you? Said, hey, you're really good here and here. Choose one of those. Or do you think that would have pushed you in a different direction? Would have made you go, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Great question. When I think of going back to that age, my dad never really pushed me to be part of his company. He owned a contracting company. He could have easily said, hey, listen, I'm going to hand the reins over to you. This is what you got to do to have it, or this is what you got to do to earn it. And he never cornered me or led me in that direction. He always said, listen, you choose what you want to do in your life. I want you to be able to pick makes you happy. And if somebody had ever tried to push me into something, I don't think there'd be any love for it. There'd be no passion for it. It wouldn't feel authentic. I think that would have felt flat. Sure. But there's one of those things that when you're at that age, I feel like there was a lot of arrogance at that time as well. I think at that age tended to look at life like I knew what was going on. I understood better than anybody else. Don't tell me, this, that, the other. And I had a lot of learning to do when it came to overcoming that. So to answer your question, if somebody had pushed me into something, there's no way I would have fought it with everything I had in me.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I just kind of think back sometimes on my life. And when you're talking about your family would support you in any direction that you went, I feel like mine was very much the same. Mm-hmm. But in that, I also feel like there was no support.
Okay.
In regards to hey, here's an option, or, presenting, because I don't remember I went to college because I thought that's the next step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Graduated high school. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to school, going to college. And I was offered some football stuff and didn't play football because of different things, ended up wrestling in college, but it was like, just because I was searching for places to fit in, right? Because I didn't, and I still don't know. I've been out of high school for almost 40 years, which is stupid. But and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, right? Mm-hmm. It's that weird thing. But sometimes I look back and think, had somebody encouraged me, not necessarily to do something, but encouraged me in a direction.
Sure.
Said, hey, I see you really good at this. I do remember the two things people used to tell me all the time as a kid, and I say as a kid, but in high school, growing up, that I should be a teacher and a coach, or I should be a pastor. And I'm like, no, neither one. I love kids, absolutely love kids. In fact, we were sitting in the airport the other day, and I think it was at the airport, maybe it was at a restaurant, I don't know. Anyways, this kid, the belly laugh of a young baby child, and I'm just like, oh my God, I love that.
Nothing beats it.
Oh yeah, and and I love kids. I love the young kids where they're like, I'm going to say malleable, where they believe anything you say, and you can kind of pull one over on them. That whole thing. I really enjoy older kids where you can have the influence on what they're going to do. So I think, yeah, that'd be great. But man, you put me in a situation where I have to deal with those kids on a daily basis, and some kid snaps off to me, I will probably punch him in the throat. I mean, it's just like, I don't think I could do that. But anyway, so I in what you're saying, I'm kind of like relating, going, yeah, I mean, I was given a really big runway and a lot of space to do but I had no clue. I mean, I had no idea.
Right.
So what would you say is your earliest childhood memory or earliest memory of, kind of growing up and
just anything specific?
No, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking of off top of my head, like, as a kid, I remember, all my buddies, and we used to go ride our bikes and do stupid stuff. I say so many times, I'm so glad there wasn't, cameras and all the shit the kids have today, because
sure.
I would, you don't want to know the things I did.
Absolutely. But, yeah, I had all the, I want to say the normal, childhood growing up, but what's normal. But we would, so I was born in 79. When I was, in the 80s, I would say I was an 80s kid. We had our big wheels, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got older, we got our bikes. But really what it was is like, we would go out into the street. We'd all be hanging out. We'd go to the pond and we would play with frogs and turtles and swim across the lake and whatnot. Our parents pretty much had no idea what we were doing. Like, we were in the woods messing around. And it's not like they were like, bad parents. That's how it was back then. When the sun went down, you went home, or when you had dinner,
street light came on, you better check in.
Right. Yeah. So I have a ton of great memories like that. I mean, we spend a lot of our time outside. Obviously, in the winter when it's freezing, we'd be playing hockey. So you throw on the 15 pounds of gear, the jacket, pants, and all that other stuff, and go out there and play on the ice. So we play a lot of ice hockey on the pond.
Okay.
Fantastic memories doing that.
Yeah.
And make you tough quick.
Yeah.
There are some other memories as I was growing up in the middle school area that I actually tend to look back on a lot of times as like a pivoting point. You're talking a lot about pivot points in life.
Yeah.
When I was in 7th, 8th grade, there was a group of kids that would corner me in the playground, and they would pick on me, and they'd bully me and throw me on the ground and beat me up. And we're talking like, I don't want to say every day, because when you look back on times like that, you kind of,
it feels like every day,
it, right?
Yep.
And I think that was a real pivotal point in my life, is where I went from living the childhood life where everything is peachy queen, like, parents love you and you're just amazing, everybody treats you so well because you're, a younger kid, right? All the way up until like 5th, 6th grade.
Yep.
But then things got real, At that age, I think kids that have bad parents or bad lifestyles or whatever, their life, the people in their life aren't all that great to them. Maybe there's an alcoholic parent or abuse in the house. They tend to take that out on the kids around them in the school. At least that's what I was seeing. And the people who were bullying me, ironically, a couple of them committed suicide. Another one, prison, drug problems. So no harm on them because they were growing up in that style of life. Those feelings that I had on that playground, I will never forget. It was something. It was just a big shift in life about understanding that things aren't just going to be perfect through life. You have to overcome challenges. You got to figure things out. And when I look back, that was a source of a lot of moments that I would look back on and say, okay, how do I overcome this issue? Because you have to work through those feelings. Those are pretty tough feelings for a kid at that age.
Yeah.
And even into my 30s, I still had feelings that would resonate similar to that.
Yeah.
Feelings of like being out of control, like where you don't have control of the situation. Like, what do you do with that? Mm-hmm. And so that's a big, I think that's a big portion of what helped mold me into who I am today.
Do you feel like those situations helped how you deal with people and situations with people? Or how maybe, I guess the question I'm asking is how you treat people in certain situations. Do you think that helped mold you in that way?
I believe that age is a very crucial age for developing who you become in life. And if you're not careful, you can fall into some really bad behavioral habits. Mm-hmm. Looking back into my 20s and 30s, I mean, work and achievements aside, I think there's a lot of people pleasing. I was always trying to people please, live my life by the golden rule. That was my theory, right? Like if I treat somebody, I want to treat people like I'd like to be treated, right? Mm-hmm. And I realized that if you do that, you start to become a people pleaser. You're saying yes all the time, even though you don't want to say yes. So somebody asks you something, you're never going to give them the authentic answer of who you really are. You're just going to give them the answer you think that they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that tends to bottle things up. Like you have some pretty deep feelings that just get shoved down deep, at least for myself.
Yeah.
I was shoving those feelings down and cover them up with smoking or drinking or, having social anxiety. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to really come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And to overcome that. Because you can always put a fake smile on, right? You can smile. Everybody walk through and everybody thinks you're having a wonderful day, but really what you're doing is you're suffering because you're feeling just, I don't know, like you're suffocating in a way,
Wait, and I almost feel like, I was going to go down a societal path. Never mind. I won't go that way. We'll go somewhere else.
Sure.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I had one sister. Yeah, she's younger than me.
Younger? Okay.
Her name's Blair.
Were you nice? Were you nice to her?
Yeah, I was. I remember.
Did you ever make her run her way?
I remember one time in the hallway in elementary school, I walked up and I think I punched her in the arm or something like that. You know what I mean? And she was like, "What the heck?" But I was always pretty nice.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. So we went to school, started as geology, and then what happened?
So I was looking to do something to change the world. I had this big grandiose idea that I was going to change the world, and so I'd really envision myself in the middle of things. I've always enjoyed being in the middle of what's happening, what's going on in the world, what's going on in my community, and broadcast journalism gave me the opportunity to be able to basically get invited, quote unquote, to anything that was happening in your area that you may not have been aware of or you weren't normally invited to. So, and what I mean by that is, if there's a fire, if there's a robbery, if there's a cool story going on, whatever it is, you get to walk into that person's life or into that group of people's life, and you get to interview people that you never would have met before. So it's a really exciting life to live. You never know what you're going to get each day, right? It's not sitting in an office, or no offense to anybody in an office, but you're not just crunching numbers every day. You're living a life that you never know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
And, you jump and you grab your camera and you run out to the truck and you drive real fast to them. Mm-hmm. So I started getting into journalism, and I graduated with a broadcast journalism degree and applied for National Geographic in Washington, D.C. Was accepted. There was 350 applicants, and 3 of us were accepted. Another one of them, the other person who was accepted, was actually from my class of 15 people. So ironically, of all over the country.
Yeah.
Was Mira. So there was 3 of us that got in. We were at the broadcast, I would say it was the National Geographic channel, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah.
They had just started this broadcast of a daily news show called National Geographic Today. It's a daily news show talking about, nature and, the type of National Geographic thing, like exploration and whatnot. They'd have cameramen on there, explorers, and nature buffs and things like that. Yeah. So I did that for a couple years in that headquarters of D.C. I was always looking for something to more expand because I'd never really looked at myself as an office person. Mm-hmm. So I said, all right, well, how do I expand on this, right? And that's when I started getting into the long format documentaries and traveling, filming around the world.
Yeah.
And editing those. So.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Did you do correspondence stuff, or was it more you would go site work, basically film and create a story and bring it back?
Sure, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So it was freelance work where you find a story, you produce a story, or you do some pre-producing for it. You pitch the idea to Geographic. They fly you down there under their, if you want to call it under their banner or under their name. Mm-hmm. So that opens up a lot of doors for you. They roll out the red carpet, when you have that name attached to it, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And I don't mean it's like a posh environment, but it opens a lot of doors in those communities. When people hear that, it is those two words. No matter whether you're in a small little village in the Amazon or in a Croatian village, they know that name. And when they hear that name, they're like, come, let me show you. So they bring you into their house and they want to cook food for you. Yeah. They want to show you the VIP package of their life.
That's awesome, yeah.
Because that almost to them is like, hey, you want to be famous, right?
Yeah,
And it's almost like famous for being you, because National Geographic focuses on people for who they are or what they are in a culture or a community.
Yeah.
So that was pretty exciting. To say the least.
How long did you do that?
So roughly 5 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And did you travel with a group of people? Was it just you? Was it like you did the camera work and did the story work line and everything?
This episode of Above and Beyond is brought to you by the amazing sponsors who help bring this show to life. A heartfelt thank you to Above Par Network, elevating connections and creating impact. Foundation Insurance Services, protecting what matters most with confidence and care. Maritime Credit Card Processing, empowering businesses through expert consulting and unwavering support. And Rocks Ink Calligraphy, bringing beauty and personal flair to every handwritten detail. We're proud to partner with these outstanding businesses who share our passion for excellence. For more about our sponsors and exclusive podcast content, visit abovebeyondpodcast.com.
So we had a producer, myself as the videographer and editor, and we had an executive producer that was in Washington, D.C., who was actually the editor of National Geographic Today, I believe it was, as a publication. So.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. What's the most exotic place you've been doing that?
Good question. I was thinking about this on the way here. We were in Ecuador for a month, and we explored the rivers and the canals of Amazon rainforest. And you've probably heard stories about how, just what a different world that is.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy. So we were going there to do a story on tourism, ecotourism, and Geographic focused on exploration for a long time, but they switched their gears in the 2000s into preservation. Mm. And so the pitch on this idea or this story was to preserve the natural culture and habitat of an area, so that way you don't have these poor communities that are devastating the rainforest, cutting down the forest or poaching the animals for, to make the money, right?
Yeah.
So rather than having these communities destroying their culture, it's about bringing tourism there to be able to get the wealth into those communities, or at least be able to keep the communities the way they are, rather than destroying what makes them beautiful in the first place.
Oh, gotcha.
So it would be about teaching them, hey, listen, people will pay to see this, to walk through it, to film it. So we were creating these geotourism spots, or you call them eco lodges and whatnot. So yeah, it was really getting the word out to those communities about, listen, you don't have to destroy these things, because they don't want to do that either, but they don't have a choice.
They just need money.
They have to feed their family, right?
Yeah.
It was a lot of that education. So we would go down there and film those areas. And one of the most exotic places, where we took this riverboat down the river for a day or two. I know it had bunks in it, so we slept in it overnight. It went down the river into the Amazon. Then we jumped onto a motorboat. It was basically just like a wooden speedboat that cruised down another tributary for a day. Oh, and then we got into a canoe that was basically a tree that was carved out.
No way.
And we're talking, you're looking at these little canal the little tributary canal that has, the jungle around you. So now you're getting 3 days in.
That's crazy.
And I'll never forget, we pull up to the coast, or to the edge of the water, and there's this hill, and there's these guys that come up over the top of the ridge, and they're wearing, that outfit that you've seen so many times.
Aboriginal type
with,
thing?
Like leaves over the...
Oh, no kidding. Oh, my God.
And they're holding their spears and whatnot.
Wow.
And, so the guy in the boat's like, hey, let me talk. You guys don't talk to him, because they're basically coming there to make sure that you're not a poacher or an oil baron or whatever it is. And they're like, hey, we don't want to scare you, but, there was a guy from the oil company that got stabbed with a spear and killed a couple weeks ago, so just beware.
Oh, wow.
And so they talked to those guys and said, hey, with Geographic, and, they gave us the opening to go in. And we spent the next several days down deep in the middle of, to me, it felt like the middle.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure there was a lot deeper areas of it, but a whole nother world, that's for sure.
I have a virtual assistant. I have a gal that works for me that actually, she's in Ecuador, and she talks about hunting waterfalls. Like when it rains, they'll go hunt for waterfalls out in the middle of nowhere. So it's interesting that you'd say Ecuador, because it fascinates me, and I think someday I'd love to go visit down there, but sometimes international travel kind of freaks me out. So.
Sure.
You just hear the bad stuff on the news, and it's like you're like, am I going to be able to come home?
Oh, something about foreign countries is that what I've seen all around the world is that people are just doing the best they can to survive, and I don't want to say that in the sense that they're doing anything bad to survive, but people are genuinely good at heart, and so you can hear something about a country in the news or whatever, and it makes it sound like that's a dangerous place or those people are bad, quote unquote, but really people are just trying to do the best they can to put food on the table and to love one another. And what I have seen in my life is that the more destitute or the more poor a country is, and the people in that country, the more inviting and polite and genuine and kind they are. They'll welcome you into their home, and they'll give you whatever they have to just bring you in and say, welcome to my home. And it's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Have you? That's a weird question. Have you? Yeah, obviously you've traveled a lot, but have you seen? I mean, has it been a lot of different places that you've traveled around the world, or is it mostly South America stuff, or what's? I mean, there's kind of a dumb question, I think, probably, sure. but it's like, have you been well traveled?
Sure. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah. Is that weird question?
That's perfect. Yeah, when you look at people, so for my life, I think my life is normal. I was very blessed, though. I was blessed to be able to understand how to travel and to feel comfortable doing it. My parents have done it their entire life. They actually just flew off to Japan this morning.
Oh, wow.
And that's the last on their bucket list, believe it or not. They're 76 years old. My dad said that's his last on his bucket list to hit. They gave me the opportunity to be able to, well, I don't want to go down that, but to answer your question, I've been to 33 countries and 48 states.
Wow.
I have not been to Maine or Hawaii. It's on my list. But most of those weren't with Geographic. I would say 7 or 8 were, but a lot of those were just traveling around as a kid with my parents when I graduated college.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So Central America, South America, of course, Canada, Alaska. I filmed a documentary in Alaska, Europe. I have not been to Africa or Asia, and I'm really looking forward to checking those out. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's areas, I think, in the Asian realm, you say it that way, that I would like to go. There's other places I'm like, I don't think I have a desire to go there. But anyways, have you, outside of the National Geographic and the traveling with National Geographic, have you done... And you said you've done quite a bit of other travel. Has it just been more tourist traveling, or have you done, big game hunts, things like that?
No hunting. Yeah, I would just say the usual travel, tourist travel.
Okay.
I'm just racking my brain now of all the different experiences. Right? But Europe is an amazing area to travel with. If you haven't heard or done Europe before, have you ever?
I've never been. New Zealand. That's New Zealand. I've been, which was. I would go back in a heartbeat. I mean, the people there were just amazing. Yeah. So
that cultural experience is really what I've always really enjoyed. Of course, the nature, the views. Mm-hmm. Italy is probably on the top of my list. I absolutely love Italy. Mm-hmm. It's just everywhere you go, every stop you go to is another beautiful, mountainside or cliffside village. the Cinque Terre, if you haven't been there, is the 5 villages. They have no vehicles in the villages, and they're all these small, colorful villages that are on a cliff.
Oh, wow.
And so if you could imagine a 45-degree cliff, and everything's on that, and they're looking down over the ocean.
Wow.
I forget what sea that is actually, but when you're cruising through Europe with a backpack and you have a certain limited amount of money. So this is the trip I took after college.
Yeah.
We had a certain amount of money. I think it was like $3,000, and we were there for 3 months.
Wow.
And that's all you have.
Yeah.
And you have a flight out at the end of that 3 months,
Yep.
so you've got to figure it out. And we landed in Zurich, Switzerland. And on that first day, I think we had spent about like $250 or $300, and we were sitting there saying to ourselves, like, we gotta get careful,
Yeah.
be careful here, because Zurich's very expensive. I don't think Switzerland really wants that many tourists unless they got coin on them. When you're on that dollar, you really have a chance to like see what the locals do and be a part of that culture. Try to find really cheap lodging.
Yep.
And, you grab a piece of bread and a stick of meat, and you're walking around with that in your backpack for a couple of days.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance to really live the life of the people in that area.
That's awesome. I had when I was fighting fire in northeastern Oregon, one of the guys on my crew and I we'd started talking about doing a backpack trip to Europe, and in essence the same thing. We were talking a month, but it was like, okay, we got this money. He ended up breaking his ankle on one of our rappels, so we couldn't. We ended up not going.
Oh, no.
But it's one of those ones where I think that would have, closest thing I did. Another buddy of mine that I fought fire with, we ended up. He had a Toyota Corona, I think. Old piece of crap car. We ripped the back seat of it out, put a camping box in the back of it. We literally had money stashed up under the dash. That was our gas money to get. We figured out like exactly how much money we needed to get home. It's like when we ran out of money. So like we're driving home, and I remember we had like 1 can of sweet corn or something like that. That's like left to eat, and heading home. We got within a couple 100 miles of home and figured out we had just enough money to, like stop at McDonald's or something. I don't know. But it was the same thing. It's like you're just trying to make that money stretch as long as you can.
Sure.
So you can, but we ended up living in tents down in Mission Beach in San Diego. So that was pretty fun.
Amazing.
A lot of fun. So you did the National Geographic thing. What made you decide to pivot from there?
Yeah, good question. I think that type of lifestyle is wonderful for your 20s and possibly your 30s, but it doesn't really pay the kind of money that you're really going to be able to live off of. As much as I wish I could say, like, yes, filming freelance is something that you may almost have to have a second job. I was working as a bartender throughout a lot of that experience.
Oh, wow.
So I've been in the restaurant industry now 32 years, and I was bartending at night, working at Geographic during the day just to supplement. And when I turned about 30 is when I said, hey, I've got to really look at my life and say, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to be here? Do you want to be traveling solo the rest of your life, or do you want to really settle down and start a family? And I felt like 30 was a really good number to say, okay, what do I have to do to lay down the foundation to really start that direction of being a father, a husband, and creating a family? So I just leaned back into my hometown, bought my first house, and got a real job, if you want to call it that, right?
Started growing roots.
Right, yeah, I was in a steakhouse called Dunhill's in my hometown. Dad and his company built the building, so there was a lot of connections there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, settling down and starting that home life.
So you got in the restaurant. I'll say got into, but you were already in it. But really, at that point, got into the restaurant industry.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the restaurant industry has always been there. It is for a lot of people when you need some extra money or when you're struggling to do something that you love. But yeah, I've been in a pizza. I was a pizza cook when I was 14 years old, and 36 years ago. So I can't even tell you the year that is. 93 or 94? Okay. Oh, that'll hurt your head.
Yeah.
Thinking about that. But yeah, so when I was growing up, I was always doing something in the restaurant industry. But that was when I straight said, hey, I'm going to be in this and do it every day.
Yeah.
That's when I started.
Have you seen the movie Mr. Deeds?
I have, yeah.
So it's funny because through college and stuff, I worked in a pizza shop, helped manage a pizza shop, whatever. And I always thought if I had unlimited, if I had a lot of money, I wouldn't want to do it I just feel like the pressure of owning a restaurant and running a restaurant and all the stuff that comes with it. But watching Mr. Deeds and him like just taking a pizza and goes give it to somebody or just that whole thing. Like there was do you remember the show Northern Exposure?
I do, yes.
So where they filmed that was about 20 miles from where I went to college.
Nice.
And so we could go up into where that was. And there was a little pizza shop there that was probably more New York style than Chicago style pizza, flat bread pizza. But the crust was about 1.5 inches. So they wouldn't bring the toppings all the way to the edge of the crust or edge of the edge of the pie. But then they'd serve, every pizza was served with a bottle of honey. Huh. And so basically you're getting dessert and then powdered sugar. So, and they had all the games and stuff. So we'd drive up there. In fact, my first date with my ex-wife was up in that area, but we go up there. I was supposed to be going with friends and the pizza was super good. Really cold day, it's snowing and whatever. And you're sitting in there playing Trivial Pursuit or whatever the heck we did. But they'd always serve the pizza. I just remember that with powdered sugar and honey. So you basically eating, dessert as you're eating the pizza. So
that's fantastic.
I always thought that'd be really cool. And then watching Mr. D's, I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. It's like kind of like a coffee shop. Nobody comes into a coffee shop pissed off. I mean, they do, but you have a chance to make their day better.
Sure.
But so you got into the restaurant industry. Now, at what point? Because you owned a restaurant was it in Chicago or was it just in Illinois?
In McHenry.
Okay, in McHenry. So you owned a restaurant there. Was it a pizza shop as well?
So I was a manager and GM of Buddy's Pizza, which is the original Vero Pizza that the Scarnato family opened and started. And when Scarnato moved out to Arizona, actually, to start the first Buddy's Vero here, I shifted over and opened up a burger restaurant called DC Cobb's in McHenry, right across the channel. So you could see it. It was about 30 feet from the pizza restaurant. Huh. And next to that was a butcher shop and deli that we had opened called Hub Market. And a silent partner in that, a little bit of input, but not a daily operator of that location. Mm-hmm. So those were the two that I was currently running when 2020 hit. And, we were rocking and rolling. That place was doing really well, super busy. It was
just shut down.
Quite a great, it was a great experience. But when Illinois decided that they were going to shut down for the pandemic, everybody in the restaurant industry, we were all chatting, right? We're all talking to one another, and we're saying, what on earth are we going to do? Because there was no roadmap, and nobody knew what was going to happen after that. Mm-hmm. It was one of those things about, like, the fear of the unknown. Yeah. Looking back on it now, it's like, okay, well, you're going to be shut down for 9 months, and it's going to be kind of half open, half closed. But at the time, it was like, this could be for a long, long time. Yeah. So my wife and I, we looked at each other. It was a Sunday, and we're like, do you want to just get out of here? Because they were going to give the speech to close the state down on the following Friday. The governor was going to give the speech. And I read it in the paper or whatever that he was going to speak and close down the state to restaurants being open and everything. So on Sunday, we're like, you want to get out? She's like, yeah, let's do it. So on Tuesday, we had a U-Haul out in our driveway 2 days later. And on Friday, 3 days after that, we were driving out of the state with all of our stuff in a U-Haul, pulling a trailer behind that. We left a lot of things because we didn't have room for it. We left the car, a bunch of other things. So we left our home. Huh. I lived there for most of my life, right? Yeah. Traveling, but 40 years of living in that town. Wow. And so we were on our way to Arizona. We didn't have a house. We didn't have anything, nowhere to stay yet. No business, nowhere to work. Yeah. And found our home online while we were driving. You know what I mean? So crazy. Sight unseen. So we got there, and the what do you want to call it? The broker was standing out in front of the house with the key when we pulled up with the U-Haul. Yeah, so here you go. Crazy. So we walked in, and that was our rent. It was our rental home at the time. Yeah. Rented in Gilbert, and before we bought our home here. And then about a month or two later, drove up to Santan Valley and drove the long Ironwood Road. If you've ever been to Santan, I always like to tell a story. I was driving down this road for what seemed like forever. Yeah. And I'm coming from the Chicagoland area, I'm not used to the desert, and driving for about 20 minutes where it was just nothing but sand. And I swear I saw like a camel walking down the street, and I'm like, what the fuck did I just get myself into? Because it was sight unseen again, because I knew where the location was. I had it in my GPS, but I hadn't been there yet. So I was going there to pick up the key for this business.
Oh, wow.
And thank God, as we're pulling up, I'm like, okay, we got businesses and buildings, and there's like kind of a town here.
Yeah.
Walked into the building that day, and I was like, well, here we are. This is a new life.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Did you have times within, we'll say, leaving National Geographic, and I'm going to call it getting into the restaurant industry. I know you did some work in there while you were National Geographic, but we'll call it that was, the step in the full blow. And then opening and operating the business, you had the pandemic. Were there times in there where, talk to me about some of the struggles, some of the things you had to go through as an owner operator, making payroll, those types of things. Did you ever have a point in time where you kind of felt like you stepped in it and you didn't want it on your shoe anymore?
You mean the restaurant industry itself?
Yeah.
There was a period of time that happened right around that March period that I was talking about. There was a conflict with my partner at the restaurant. So right when it was shutting down, I was actually at a leadership, I don't want to say self-development, but a leadership seminar. It was a 100-day course. I was in the graduating weekend, the weekend of March, or I believe it was early March. And when I had gotten back, he had done some things to basically like change the locks and switch it all out. Like it was this is kind of crazy, right?
Oh, wow.
I don't want to go too far into it, but it was a bit of a reshuffle. So I had to make up a decision there of what I was going to do. Was I going to fight for the company? Was I going to take off or whatever? So my wife and I discussed it and said it was probably better to just leave town and start new. And I had a choice. I had a choice to make whether to get out of the restaurant industry or to fight for it, to build something new. And it's amazing how when you're pushed up against the corner, how you can find a new drive inside. And I really had to make a big decision. I talked with the Scarnatos and said, hey, if you have room for me, I'd be really grateful. And spent the next 90 days, as I was telling you when we pulled up to that door, I spent 90 days building out that building. There was nobody working because of the pandemic, so every time I tried to find a carpenter or a plumber or whatever, they'd show up and be like, I want nothing to do with this project. I was like, I got money, you sure?
Yeah.
So I learned how to do carpentry, plumbing, random things on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so at night, I'd watch a YouTube video, learn how to do a certain thing with a certain tool, go to Harbor Freight, buy the tool, go in there, do the carpentry, whatever it was, then go and return the tool because it was busted after a few days.
Yeah.
With my receipt. But to answer your question, like that was really the decision that I had to make. I was like, hey, let's go all in on this. And I decided then that it really wasn't about the restaurant industry. Yes, customer service is really important. The quality of the food, of course, is very important. The atmosphere. Those are the big three pillars of the restaurant industry, in my opinion. They're all very important. However, I don't look at it as being a restaurant owner. I look at it as leadership building and creating a team of people who can find themselves in that industry. It's a lot of hard work. It's a difficult place to be in that business. People always have an opinion. There's Karen, we're going to call them Kens, whatever,
yeah.
right? And so everybody's got an opinion. And when you are in that industry, it's tough. I mean, the ovens are hot and there's a lot of intensity. And one of the things that I've really found is inspiring for me and my why, so to speak, when I wake up in the morning is knowing that when I'm able to work with my team, I'm able to help them find a way to develop themselves. And that's more rewarding than anything else.
Yeah.
If a customer says they had great service, they had great food, yes, that's great. I'm happy that the customer is happy with their experience. But it's really more so about how were you able to develop the team that created that product for those people?
Yeah.
And that's
I would think too in the restaurant industry, and this is just outside perception, that good reviews come few and far between. Bad reviews, people scream them.
Sure.
Is that fair?
Sure. Yes. And boy, I used to hate Yelp. I almost wanted to make my job to destroy Yelp. I wanted to put 20 hours a week into that. And I realized that those review sites are actually a fantastic way of receiving feedback from your guest. So you can be resistant and you can yell at them like, oh, screw you don't know what you're talking about. It's a tough business to be in. But really what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, hey, listen, this is an area that you can improve in.
Yeah.
And I want to give you my experience on that. So I'm always telling my managers and my staff to keep enrolling your customers into leaving reviews. You don't have to tell them what to write. You don't have to tell them what star to leave. But say, hey, listen, like if you had a good experience, let us know about it. Because a lot of times people don't feel like it's worthy to like get a good review. But just by mentioning it, it kind of jars that person to say, hey, you know what?
Did right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Help us know what we did right and wrong.
Sure.
But yeah, the wrong stuff is a little bit easier usually. But I do feel like the right stuff, and I love that though, because I do feel like if you're taking it from a constructive criticism perspective and not I'm bashing you, and obviously there's the people that are just plain rude, right? They're just going to say stupid stuff. There's nothing you could ever do to make it right. Doesn't matter. And the ones that I hate are when you get criticism and it's like, try to say this in a very ambiguous way. They could have said something to you to your face at that point and you could have fixed it.
Sure.
But they don't say anything and then they go leave you that review. It's like, dude or dudette or whatever. It's like,
sure.
We could have had this communication. I mean, I could have fixed this right in that moment. That's an easy fix.
Sure.
Yeah,
and that's why I've always said that there should be a Yelp for customers.
Yeah.
Right. So you can leave a review for the customer.
For the customer,
like, 1 star, they were terrible.
Yeah.
Kidding aside. But, it's ironic. I didn't think we would be talking about this subject, but today we received a 1-star review.
Oh, really?
And, no big deal. It's fine. So I'm reading into it. My son and I went to one of the restaurants the other day to enjoy the final game of the Cubs playoff, right?
Okay.
So I wasn't,
you didn't know it was the final game of the Cubs playoff.
Right. Well, yeah, Game 5 was the last game of the series, so it was do or die. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm like, hey, I want to take my son. We haven't hung out one-on-one for a while. I'm going to take him to the game. So I take him in there to sit at our restaurant and just hang out. I got my Cubs jersey on. My son's sitting there with me at the table. And, we had a good game, enjoyed it. It was a little bit busy, so I got up and helped out during the commercials. The commercial breaks, I would walk around and help customers. But we had a full staff. My co-owner was there. So we were staffed up. It's fine. I talked to every table at least 5 times, right? Mm-hmm. I get this review today that says, or we did, that said, the owner just sitting at a table, with his son, just being a bum, not caring whatsoever about his guests.
Oh, my.
Like, how dare you? I'm never coming back in here again. You don't care about anybody. And you just want to reach out and say, excuse me, But I always look at it and say, listen, when I respond to somebody, I say, listen, I understand where you're coming from. Maybe you had a tough day, and you when people go to a restaurant, they want to get taken care of. They want to feel special for a day. They've had a tough week at work, and a lot of times that they'll tend to take it out on people that they think they can get away with it at.
Yeah.
So I always like to tell our staff, there's a fine balance between being a pincushion and being too over the top, rude, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find that intermediary, because if you're always saying sorry, people will take advantage of that and they will stomp you into the ground. So many people I've seen in the restaurant industry crying and in the back. The walk-in cooler is always a favorite place for people to go and cry.
Go hide for a little bit. Yeah.
But,
got that.
But yeah, I'll tell you that those things, though, are the things that really build the resilience in the people that I see in the business. I can't tell you how many hosts that are 16 years old that walked in there just nervous, shaking like a leaf. And within a few weeks or a couple months, they were really finding themselves and understanding how to have a thick skin and to be able to let it roll off your chest or over your shoulder, and not take things personally. And it's really exciting to watch the growth of these people in these roles, especially their first job.
Yeah.
In customer service. Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine standing at a hostess station with 15 people with their arms crossed staring at you.
Right.
Where's my pizza?
Right. When you've got empty tables, but it's like we're not filling those tables yet, or for whatever reason. It's like I always love that when you go. It's like, that section's closed right now.
Sure.
But obviously though too, there's that balance in some restaurants, right, where it's like, do we want to sit the people and have them sit at the table and wait, because then they're pissed off because they're sitting at the table and waiting, or do we want to have them just wait in line and we'll tell them we'll get them seated as soon as possible when we have empty tables, so that whole thing. But I love your guys' pizzas, by the way, just saying. So sidetrack, so you had buddies up north. You went into burger industry?
Oh, in Illinois. So I was GM or manager for 7 years there, off and on depending on the role. DC Cobb's was a burger restaurant for 3.5 years.
Okay.
Then came here and have been doing now Buddies, which turned into Vero for 5.5 years.
Yeah. So now you got Vero and you've got 2 locations.
Correct.
Where are the locations, just for our listeners?
Santan Valley on Ironwood and Ocotillo, and the newest location is North Chandler on Ray Road.
Okay.
Ray and 101.
Okay. Pizzas, wings, beer. You have a full bar, right?
Correct. Full bar, signature cocktails, all the fun things, the floaty duck in there and all that. Women love that. My wife is always telling me, I gotta give a shout out to Carrie. She's been my cocktail connoisseur, motivator.
Nice.
That's a full bar, amazing buffalo wings, Italian beef sandwiches, meatball sandwiches. The Scarnato family recipes are fantastic. We were just voted #1 pizza in Phoenix this year by New Times.
Okay.
And we were also voted that same award in 23. I believe Spinato's was the one who got it in 24, but we had it in 23 and 25.
Nice.
And I think we have a fantastic reputation in the area, just kind of a word of mouth type reputation, but a good culture.
Yeah. I like your the butter crust, the deep pan butter crust or whatever that is. That I don't even know what it is.
Sure. It's all right.
I just say the deep dish one.
Right. Yeah, we have technically five different crusts. We have thin, cauliflower, gluten-free, and then the two that people get mixed up a lot are the butter crust and the deep dish.
Okay.
They're both cooked in a pan. They're both cooked with our signature butter butter melted into the actual crust, stored overnight, so that way it soaks up that butter real nice. And the butter crust is regular pizza sauce with the toppings inside and the cheese on the top. And then the Chicago traditional deep dish is with the cheese on the bottom.
That's the one
and
I
then,
like.
Toppings. And then you have Pomodoro tomatoes and the sauce on the top.
Yeah,
a lot of times people are literally like, you guys forgot the cheese. What on earth is this lasagna, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we have to educate people out here, which is fine.
Yep.
You either love it or hate it. Our pizzas, are like over 5 pounds. When you take them, you got to hold them with 2 hands because they're so heavy.
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody, but when you enjoy it, people are just in love with our pizza. And for a 14-inch deep dish pizza, you could, as an adult, you may be able to finish 1 or 2 slices, and you got a ton of leftovers, and they taste just as good.
Oh yeah,
when you reheat them. That's a big difference between us and the.
And I recommend reheating them in the oven, not in the microwave. But I know some people want them.
Sure. Or there's the air fryer also isn't too bad.
Yeah, I've tried that too. That's pretty good. So are you a big reader? Do you self? I'm gonna call it self-help, but do you do much reading?
Yeah, so good question. Yeah, I've always struggled with reading. I don't know what it is, but it's basically like a sleeping pill for me. So when I read, I fall asleep. There's nothing you're going to do to stop that from happening.
Same.
So I'm a believer in reading 10 pages a night. If I can, that my goal is to read 10 pages. But where I get most of my material is through Audible, and we actually have a team Audible for our managers that they all have the ability to listen to with, I think, over 30 or 40 different titles. And the word self-help always seems like it's you have something broken in you, right? I believe in the word self-development or
personal development or something.
Yeah, it's really yes, exactly. And so I have quite a bit of different titles that I read on there, but I tend to lean toward books like The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. Brene Brown has some fantastic leadership books that she does. Anybody knows who David? Oh, geez, I'm going to forget his name all of a sudden. My goodness. Oh, anyway, I have a shirt even with his name on it. I forgot all of a sudden. Goggins, I'm sorry. David Goggins, if you haven't heard him.
Yep.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. But, those are the type of books that I generally read.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I
listen to, I should say.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I can't read. I shouldn't say I can't read. I'm the same. It puts me to sleep, or I read the same sentence over and over and over and over again.
Sure.
And then I'm like...
I'm sure there's some type of ADHD medicine I could take that would fix that. But
what I've started doing, which helps me, is I'll have the audiobook on audio or on Audible, and then I'll have the physical book, and I'll turn the Audible book faster, so it's actually... And I can blow through books really quick, but it seems to keep my mind engaged in what's going on, but being able to see it on the paper helps it stick.
Sure.
So somebody had turned me onto that, and I'm like, let's try that, and I absolutely love it.
That's great.
It's like I think I need to force myself more often to sit down and do it. I've got stacks of books that people recommend. I've got a list of books on my phone that people recommend. I'm like, check that one out.
Sure.
It's like, and I buy it, read the first couple chapters, then on to something else. So, but.
Yeah, I think that finding the way to multitask is a real life changer. That's where I shifted in my life, is the big excuse, right? Everyone has excuses why they can't do things, right? Why they can't level up, go above and beyond, right?
Yeah.
I was waiting to like.
Yeah, there you go.
But my excuses was always time or money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. So, hey, have you read this? Oh, no, I don't have time.
Yeah.
It's all a choice. Like, do you have choice, right? So even if you have an amazingly intense schedule, right? Like Elon Musk, for example, he's like building rockets and battery powered cars. Well, somehow he still has the ability to open up another company or whatever it is, right? Well, how do you do that? And that's really about multitasking. You think about how many hours a day that you are moving around where you really could be doing two things at once. And I'm always trying to identify an area that I can multitask. At the same time, be present in the moment at other times. Because if you can really pack your development hours of a day, improving yourself or working on a certain thing, working on a project or a hobby, if you can pack those into a smaller amount of time during the day, you have more time to be present with your family, your kids, your wife. And one of those ways of doing that is every time I'm driving, I'm listening to some type of a podcast or an audiobook. When I'm at the gym, I'm listening to motivational podcasts or books as well. When you're in the shower, I mean, you got 15, 20 minutes, you can listen to something there. So that's really been able to help level me up.
Yeah.
Almost double the amount of hours you have in a day anyway.
For sure, yeah. What speaking of, what does a typical day of Josh Carstens look like? Because you've got a family, which younger family. How old are your kids?
I have two sons, 8 and 11, and Wyatt is 8. This is a shout out to Wyatt. He wanted to be on the podcast today.
Nice.
So.
Well, Wyatt,
maybe next time. Buddy.
Came up. Yeah, no kidding. So you've got the two kids. What does a typical day for Josh look like, as far as like when do you get up, when do you hit the gym? You've got the restaurant, which obviously restaurant hours are not like traditional office hours.
Sure. Great question. I wake up at 6:30. My wife would correct me and say it's more like 6:45 or 7.
Yeah.
The alarm goes off at 6:15. And first thing I do after I've had a chance to just kind of breathe and like wake up is to take a look at certain things in the morning. And one of the things I always like to look at, like first thing, is the stock market, believe it or not. I look at my investments to see if there's any movement in the market. The market is obviously based in Eastern time, so here in Phoenix, we got to get on that quick because we're three hours behind. So I'll check that. I'll look at emails and go through what my day is going to look like. I'll lay out what I'm going to do throughout my day to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Get the kids off to school. I drive the kids every day, which is fantastic. I love it. It's a bit of a chore, but I'll never regret looking back that I'm not able to spend that 20 minutes with every morning, just talking about their life. And so I'll drop them off at school, and then I head straight to the gym. I go to Lifetime Fitness in Gilbert, and I could go to another gym that's a little cheaper or, better, whatever. But I actually enjoy going there because people at Lifetime, they tend to have, to me, it seems like they have their life. I don't want to say there's people who have a better understanding of who they are there. I guess I don't know how to explain it, but you have people who are established, they're businessmen, they're entrepreneurs. The type of conversations that are going on there are fantastic for being able to set good relationships with people in the area, connections and networking. After that, I'll make a phone call at 10 o'clock. Generally, it's a development call. I'll try to reach out to somebody and give them some positive advice. I'll talk to someone about investments, about how they're trying to improve their leadership skills as a manager, work on someone who's on my team, just invest in somebody for a half an hour to an hour. Head to one of the restaurants, check it out, see how things are going there, do an inspection report, talk to the staff, talk to the managers. And then I head home, spend some time with my wife, and then we go pick up the kids, and then we off to the races with the kiddos. Otherwise, if I'm not at the restaurant doing the Spanish lessons and the guitar lessons and piano and jiu-jitsu and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And,
going crazy.
Yep.
If you're, and I don't, this is a kind of an interesting kind of mind meld question, but if your brand, we'll say your brand is Vero's Pizza, right? If that disappeared tomorrow, where would that leave you, and what do you think you'd do? I mean, how do you pick up and move forward?
That is an amazing question. So I'm always looking at life like, I use the analogy, what if the aliens came down and just took this thing and it disappeared, right? Yeah. I don't mean literally, but figuratively, if that happened, what would you do? And so I'm always analyzing what would be my lifeboat, right? So if the Titanic were to start sinking, what are your outs? And So I'm constantly thinking about what is my next option, and so I'm putting together different restaurant concepts, different menus. Also looking at doing different investments, like a laundromat, for example. Like people think laundromats and like, really, like what's so exciting about that, right?
Plugging quarters.
Sure, right? But if you look at it, that is the highest percentage of success in any business in a small town or a family-owned business in America. 95% success rate, because everybody's got to do, not everybody has a laundry machine, right? So I'm driving around looking at laundromats that are for sale, looking at other real estate investments, talking with a number of different people about working on Airbnbs and doing flips, buying a house, flipping and everything else. So those are all things that have been laid out that are kind of just on the shelf, but not right away needed.
Yeah.
So if someday Vero disappears, we're going to reach out and grab one of those things from the shelf. So, and it's not like a scary thing. I think over our lifetime, at my age of 46 years old, I really learned that like failing forward is a huge part of success. And I don't mean that if Vero disappeared to be failing, but I look at all the failures that I've had in my life. Every time I failed at something, when I applied for a job, or I got fired or laid off, or something I was trying to do didn't work out, that actually taught me a lot more about life than anything else. And so if Vero disappeared or whatever, I got taken up by aliens, or I have to start my life over again, I actually look forward to that. I would actually be excited to be able to. Sorry?
I said for that new start.
Yeah. Right. And because we get comfortable as humans, right? We're like, we want to do the same pattern every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Wake up, do this, do that. And when I look back at the end of my life, I tend to put myself. One of the analogies that someone shared with me about a year ago, it changed my entire outlook on life. If you're having a tough moment, or if you feel like, hey, I am just not happy with my life, or I'm not feeling this, take yourself in a time machine to the day you're on your deathbed, and tell yourself at that day that you could come back to this very moment and live in this body with your health and your kids and your house and your wife and all the things you have in this moment. And you could do whatever you wanted with this moment. Like, how would you feel in that moment to do that? And it takes me out of the anxiety or the fear of failure, or because we never really in the moment. We're always thinking like afraid of what's going to happen ahead of us and anxious about the future. And we're regretting the past and the decisions we made. And we're never right here in the middle in the moment. And when I think about that, it completely resets me and say, okay, I have this moment. I have the gratitude or the ability to be able to do something here right now in this moment. So
that's awesome.
So that doesn't answer the question, but it kind of does, because
I think,
I would take it by the horns and say, I get this opportunity to recreate myself again at 46. How exciting that is.
Yeah. Well, that is cool. I mean, and you were talking earlier about, not doing something because the lack of money or the lack of time, right? My thing has always been, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the knowledge to do that. What I've found now, looking back, is you don't have the knowledge until you do it.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
And there's nothing you could ever do that's going to prepare you for every exact scenario that's going to come up in any situation, right?
Sure.
If you could go back, and I think you've kind of already answered this a little bit in that last little statement that you gave, but if you could go back to any point in your life and give yourself one piece of advice, where is that in your life, and what's the advice that you'd give yourself?
Again, that's an amazing question. It really is. And that's something I was actually thinking about on the way here. I didn't know that you'd ask that question. But looking back, speaking to the 16-year-old self, the 18-year-old self, is to say, whatever you're doing in your life, you don't need to worry that what you're doing in that moment is going to be what you're doing your whole life. And you don't need to put your pressure on yourself to say, oh, if I screw this up, it's going to be the end. And oh my goodness, I'm going to be a failure. And what I would say is, if you're cooking fries on a fryer, be the best cook you can be on that fryer. Learn how to work with people around you and have a good attitude about that. Wake up and be on time every single day, and be the best version of yourself in that position you can be. Because one day, the manager's not going to show up, or the pizza cook's not going to show up, and they're going to say, hey, man, we need somebody. And you're the guy, because you showed up every day and you showed us what you have in that role. because then you're going to shift into that next role, and you're going to be the best pizza cook you can ever be.
Yeah.
And one day they're going to say, hey, we need a manager, man. Like, they didn't show up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you're a manager. Now you're a leader, and you're showing the people around you that you can be resilient and that you understand that you won't. When I said the word arrogance earlier, I used to feel like I was above everything. Like, I don't need to go through this, like, whatever. Well, I didn't have that resilience. I was afraid to fail. So all of it was fake. It was like paper tiger stuff, right? And honestly, like, every time you have one of those really difficult situations, that's actually building the resilience in you to be able to have that true confidence. When you walk in a room, you can't fake it. You can pretend to fake it, and you think you're faking it, but people can see right through that you don't have that true confidence in you. And you know when you look in the mirror, you don't have it.
Yeah.
You know, when you look in the mirror, you can't fake yourself. Like, you can't look in the mirror and be like, oh, yeah, I know everything. Well, no, you don't, because that little voice in the back of your head is saying, no, you don't.
Yeah.
So building that resilience up is through experience. Every experience you live in your life, just do the best you can. So there's four mantras that I live on. It's called the 4 Agreements. That's actually the representation of my sleeve tattoo.
Okay.
First one is be impeccable with your word. Always tell the truth. And that means no white lies. Just always be honest. So when someone asks you a question, be honest. Don't be a dick, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
when I say honest, be honest with yourself.
Authentic.
Right? How you doing, right? Well, I'm doing okay. Just had a little tough morning, whatever, but I'm doing all right. Like, not just faking your way through life. Be honest. Be impeccable with your word. The second one is don't take anything personal. When someone does something to you, around you, whatever, they're in their own world. They're in their own lens of what their life is at that moment, and they're not concerned about you. They're not thinking about you. Yeah, maybe they say something to you.
Yep.
Maybe they say something around you that really pisses you off or hurts, right? Don't take anything personal.
Yeah.
Right? Because that can shift your entire view on life.
Yep.
And the third one is don't make assumptions. So if you make an assumption, what it ends up doing is, you think you can take where that's going, but like you think you know what the answer really is, but really it could be something entirely different. Right. You'd be like, oh, Jimmy really hates me. He thinks I'm an idiot, da, 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 da. And if you actually go up to Jimmy and say, hey, like, what do you think of me? I don't know, man. I think you're cool. Right? So, like, you making these assumptions up in your head, it limits you in your environment. And the fourth is always do your best. My advice to my younger self, or to people out there who may want to hear this or need to hear this right now, is that as long as you do your best and you gave it your all, that's all that really matters. And it might sound cheesy or cliche, but if you do the best that you can at that moment, it might not be enough.
Right.
But at that moment, you have the tools at that moment to do a job that way. At least that you gave it your all, and you're going to learn something from that experience, whether you win or lose or.
Well, and I feel like in that is coming at every situation with confidence, but not arrogance.
Sure.
Right. Sure. And I think, we live in a world where we can hide behind a computer screen, say stupid stuff, whatever it is, but being able to be authentic through that. And I love what you just said, and I say it to people all the time, and I'm going to rephrase it, but it's, we can only make decisions or make life choices based on our experiences. And what's happening to me right now, today, in this moment, is based on the experience that I had a couple minutes ago, right? Or I I left the house and was in a fight with my significant other when I left the house. And so that's weighing on me. So any interaction with you could trigger that in a heartbeat. And for you to react negatively back doesn't help the situation, but to be able to embrace that understanding that this person doesn't have a problem with me. There's something going on. Sure. So let's just let that roll, type of thing. So what is something, or maybe not something, but what do you think is the misconception or misperception of where you are in your journey and what you have to go through? I mean, and maybe we talk about employees that you have, and we don't have to go down that road, but with regards to the success that I will say you've created for yourself, what do you think is the misperception of the general public in looking at you from an outside and understanding that success?
It's a hard question to answer, because I don't think I've ever really gave that too much thought about myself personally. I generally I tend to take that question in a general sense of when you see somebody successful, at least when I was arrogant and naive, right? As we all are at some point in our life, I see somebody who had success and said, okay, that guy with that car right there, or that guy with that job, they must have just, how did they get that? I was like, were they given it to them by their parents? I mean, are they a trust fund baby? You know, like you just kind of assume that they just got it handed to them. And I think one of the things that people may misunderstand about myself, or people who are in the business or as an entrepreneur and have a successful line of work in any realm, is that it came easy, and that it was a straight line of you do this and you get this. And everyone who has lived the life understands that there's a lot that goes into that, and it's a very squiggly line, so to speak, right?
Get comfortable with pivoting.
Yes, right. So success to me is, you always hear the iceberg comparison, right? Like there's the tip of the iceberg and you only see the tip. And the real true work is all below the water, and you can't see what somebody actually goes through every day to get where they are. And there really is no ever like success, right? What is success? Is success happiness? Is it joy? Is it financial? But when I look at success for myself, and when people look at me, what I hope that people understand is that success to me is being able to solve the problems and challenges of life every day, where you know that you can pretty much overcome just about anything. Obviously, if I get hit with a bullet, it's not going to end well for me. But I mean in the sense of we're always going to have challenges hitting us every single day. Whether that's going to be a death in the family, or the business struggling, or somebody being cutting you off in traffic. It's all about how you address that challenge and say, all right, the world just gave me this, right? What am I going to do with what just happened? What is my next move? How am I going to choose my next decision to work through that? And I might be off the subject of the question, and to go back to the question, what do people maybe have a misconception of whatever that success is, right?
Yeah.
When people see me, they may see, oh wow, he's a restaurant owner and he's so cool. There was a time in my life where, as an owner, I would always bask in this idea of like, oh, they think I'm so cool because I own this pizza restaurant. Everybody wants to like shake my hand and say they know me, and all these managers every day, they're like, hey, they said they know you, so they get a free pizza, right, or whatever. I'm like, I don't know them. I don't have any friends. I always joke around. I'm like, I don't have friends. If anybody ever says they're my friend, because I would tell my friend that they're whatever. I'd call them a piece of shit. And so I think that the misconception is that like it's all gravy, like. When you're an owner of a business and you have your life together, that it's just like it's easy. And I don't want to say that it's difficult when you're in that position, but I feel a lot of times people don't realize what it took to get to that position. And in no way am I anything that special, right? Like I'm just a pizza owner, restaurant owner in a small town. But at the same time, I think I'm starting to understand the concept of really being able to not victimize myself and to play victim to the things that happen in your life. And that to me is ultimately like a success, because I can look at all the challenges that I have and I can say, hey, I'm going to be the best husband. I'm going to be the best father. I'm going to be the best version of myself that I can be. And you know what? If something comes up, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
I've asked myself all the time, like, what if one day, like, snap your fingers, you wake up and you're literally under a bridge with nothing? Like,
where are you going?
And I don't know if I'm not really afraid of that anymore.
Yeah.
I think that was a scary thought for me for a long time. And it's like, I wouldn't be very comfortable. Like, that would suck to have to reset. But what are the tools that you have to be able to overcome that?
Yeah.
And that's
I think it was like we were discussing before we started. You have obviously everything. You have a choice, and people say that over and over again. It's like it gets old, or cliche, but it's true, and it's true all the way to the point of total destruction, and saying, okay, I have absolutely nothing. I have no money, no house, no whatever. You can make a choice to live in that, or you can make a choice to say, okay, what's the next step to get one step closer to out of that. What do I have to do? And maybe it's, eating crow, making up with somebody that said you never talked to, or whatever it is. But I feel like sometimes when people look at success, and we'll use a very broad brush when we say success, but when people look at success, they think, oh, you woke up one day and you were successful. And what they don't see is all of the work behind the scenes, the late nights, the early mornings, the stress that goes along with, I got to make payroll and I can't put it on a credit card, or, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, where's this money going to come from? How do we do this? How do we move it forward? A couple more questions and we can probably wrap it up. I mean, I don't want to belabor this. I feel like I talked to you for quite a while. I'm enjoying the conversation, and I appreciate your insight with regards to, just kind of your thought process. I feel like we share a very similar thought process. If you were to ask, we'll say somebody who knows you well, what kind of leader do you think that they say you are, and what kind of leader do you want them to say you are?
Oh, boy, give me a moment.
Yeah. It's kind of a deep question, but...
Sure. Type of leader that I think that they would say I am. Boy, oh boy, that's a tough one. So throughout the years, obviously, you change a little bit. So as of this moment, I think that one of the things that I've been working on quite a bit is trying to be calm around my team as a leader. I've always been, I'm Italian, so I can have a pretty intense energy. I've always looked at it as a superpower because you can take that energy and turn it into good. However, when I walk into a room, a lot of times people literally jump. I'll be behind somebody just, saying hello, and they'll jump out of their shoes, right?
Oh, wow.
So I have to, if they were to say, okay, to go back, if they were to say what type of leader you are, wow, I haven't never thought about that. That's unbelievable. Of course, you think about what you hope they are, or what you want them to think of you as a leader, right? Hope.
Well,
let's hope for the second part, right?
Let's answer that first.
Sure.
What kind of leader do you hope people feel you are?
Yeah, that might help.
Yeah. Let's go down that road. Yeah.
I hope that the people that I have around me that see me as a force of leadership, or someone to emulate in any way, as a person who understands that we're all doing the best we can. And if they make mistakes, I'm going to be understanding about those mistakes, and we're going to learn something together from that mistake. I'm a big believer in feedback. That word might be overused these days, and I think ChatGPT puts feedback into every response to every review.
Just about.
But the word feedback is an amazing way, an amazing term, and I've really embraced that, because if you ask somebody if they're okay with feedback, and they say yes, that's almost giving somebody the go-ahead, the green light to say, hey, out of respect, I'm going to now share with you what I, as a leader, see in you and how you can improve.
Yep.
Right? It's not an insult. It's not an attack. In no way is that a negative thing. It's me saying, I respect you enough to be honest with you. So I hope that the people in my team see that when I share something with them on how to, people call it criticism, right?
Right, yeah.
I don't look at it that. I look at it as, how do we take what you currently are and identify the areas that we can discover about who your personality and your pluses and minuses. How do we formulate that into something that's even better?
Yeah.
1% better.
Yeah.
And let's do that every day. That's every day. And so I hope they look at me as somebody who can not only dish it out, right, but receive it.
Yeah.
So that's why I always pride myself in a meeting and saying, I'm open to feedback. Anything you have for me, I would love to hear it, as long as it's respectful, right?
Right. And I think that as a business owner, I've tried to be similar in that, where it's like, look, I'm not a perfect person, and I know there's a lot of things I could do a lot better. With my employees, I'm gonna try to give you as much leeway as I possibly can. I have an expectation. I have clients that need to be taken care of and need to be responded to. And I tell my staff, I don't care what you have on your plate. If a client reaches out to you and needs something, they're your only problem, because right now that's their only problem, right? That's what we need to take care of. But I also want to be able to be in a position where if I have an unreal expectation, I want somebody to be able to say, hey, look, that's unrealistic. We need to go it this way. And I may disagree. I may push back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that I'm not thinking about it. It's not that I'm not taking it into consideration. And maybe in a couple of days I come back and go, okay, I get it. Maybe we need to back that down a little bit. But I feel like, it's interesting because as a business owner, right, we employ people, and those employees, whether it's cognitive or not, they, we're pedestaled, not, necessarily ever is it a good way or a bad way. Just,
Sure.
You're better than whatever. And so they don't want to let you see the bad parts, which is fine. But if you can come at it from a constructive perspective, I like that, to be able to say, hey, I see value in you here, and this is how I see that value being better utilized, or what have you. So anyways.
That's absolutely a great way to look at it. And a caveat to that is to say, not only am I going to share my thoughts on how you can improve or how I can see you being an improved leader, mm-hmm. is ask yourself that.
Yeah.
And to be able to give them the freedom and the comfortable ability to say, hey, I want to self-analyze. And so asking people in your team to say, when you look at yourself, what area can you improve on?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are going to give you, hey, if you could grade yourself from like a 1 to 10, you're always going to see a 9.5. Like,
right.
There's always room for improvement,
Yeah.
but I'm a 9.5.
I'm really damn good.
When you get into it and you start saying to yourself, you know what, I'm a 3.
Yeah.
Asking yourself the relationships in your life. What are the relationships in your life? Can you rate them 1 to 10?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to say 8.
Yeah.
Right? Well, is it really?
Is it really? Yeah.
Is this surface level, or is this a real relationship? Do you have this person?
And how do we better our communication in that,
mm-hmm.
right? As a business owner, for me anyways, I'm about communication. If we got an issue, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. Let's talk it through. If there's something that needs to happen, whatever, communicate. Don't just do and then ask for forgiveness. Because I can tell you, in my experience anyways, because it only goes so far, that asking for forgiveness later, you get that once or twice. After that,
sure,
I'm done playing that game. Where do you go from here? I mean, what's your plan? You got the 2 locations. You going to go 5 more?
Oh, goodness. I'll tell you, it is exciting to think about when you're at this position. There's a book I read. It's by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. He talks about either you run the restaurant or the restaurant runs you.
Yeah.
And one of the blessings of having multiple locations is that you're able to move the pieces between the locations, almost like chess pieces on a board. Mm. And it actually makes things almost smoother, because if you need something, you can always pull it from the other locations. And if there's an opportunity to be able to grow and to have another concept with 5, 10, 15 restaurants, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I think it's really all about the team that I have around me. Looking at doing a number of different investments with real estate. And
nice.
I would really like, I say I really like, but retirement is something that I put on my
someday
on my board, right?
Yeah.
Right. When we have a vision board, my vision board is 50 years old. I'm 46 right now. When I say retirement, I don't mean that I'm just going to play
be gone.
Crossword puzzles until I'm like 90. I mean,
right.
From the active, operational standpoint, I want to be retired at 50 years old and then move into something that's more of a passive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Change, and then look at doing things that are like hobbies and things that philanthropic ideas.
Yeah.
Helping, this is a random thing. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I've always loved to do some type of mentoring for kids and, on the topic of bullying and how to work through those emotions and the challenges of being a kid and being bullied. I would love to be able to give speeches or some type of seminars and things like that to kids.
That'd be really cool. I feel like our society, and when I say our society, I'm speaking probably more macro in the United States type of thing, but micro, I don't know how you say that, but with regards to becoming just really soft, and you talked about being bullied and picked on. I was the same way. Like growing up, I feel like every single day I was beat up, and I'm sure it was probably once a week, but it's like, it feels like it was every single day,
together, right?
Every recess I was getting beat up. That's what it felt like. But, in that and having grown up with the name that I have, and my dad was a teacher. We lived in a very small town. Everybody knew who we were. Everybody's older brother or sister hated my dad, so their brothers and sisters that were younger my age hated me, and kind of getting through that. But one of the things that, and you had mentioned the kids that picked on you, one of the things my dad said to me, as a kid was, he says, those kids that pick on you are jealous of you for some reason, right? You have something that they don't, which I always thought was a really weird thing to say because we never had money. I mean, my dad was a teacher. My mom made not a lot of money, and we just never had money. And I think, how could I have something that they want, right? But he said, as you watch those kids become young adults and then into their adulthood, they will be the ones that don't go anywhere with their life. And 100% true, every single one of them. Every single one of them. So it's interesting, to be able to say, to be able to mentor kids in that and have those conversations or do motivational speaking, if you call it that, or what have you, where you can have those conversations with kids and say, look, it sucks. Being a kid sucks. I had a guest on the podcast who is black and had a friend as she was growing up who was white, and then at some point the family dynamic, it was more of a, well, you're black, and all of a sudden the labels came out, right? And I feel like as kids, there's no labels, but all of a sudden we now decide that we're going to throw labels on stuff, and good labels, bad labels, whatever it is, and we've got our biases and stuff, and we live on our experiences and what have you. But to be able to help kids understand that life sucks, I mean, to an extent, right? Sure. It's going to be tough. There's going to be days where you feel like you cannot get up. You want to lay in bed and suck your thumb, But those are the days you got to go, okay, let's get up and find one reason to get up and move forward, take a step. So, but anyways.
That's a big, there's a big shift at that age, right? It goes from, how kids are when they're really young, they're accepting of everybody and everything. They have no biases. And then all of a sudden there's that shift at that one age. And I don't think there's enough that in this community, in our community, that speaks to the kid on that. At least when I grew up, I didn't have anybody that was, my dad would always tell me, hey, stand up for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's great advice. It's really difficult at that time to say that, though. Well, what if I do that, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and not necessarily does it mean physically standing up for yourself, but standing up for yourself in that, if you're getting beat up, physically standing up for yourself. But if it's, name calling and things like that, I have no eyebrows. Like, I've never had eyebrows. Right. Growing up, very, very, well, they're there, but they're stupid blonde. And I don't know why, and my name is Jan. It's like, Jan plucks her eyebrows. Jan, it's like stupid stuff that still runs through my head to this day. Yep. And I think, that could have defined me, but I'm like, no, you know what? And I can remember to this day, the day that I made the shift where I'm like, I am not going to allow these people to define who I am as an individual. And I don't feel like I have. But anyway, so we have so much enjoyed having the conversation with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hey, everybody that comes on gets a gift. And this is just a little token of appreciation for you. You can go ahead and open it up if you would like.
All right.
I've got a friend who owns Rocks Ink Calligraphy. If you ever need anything done in calligraphy, she is amazing. That's just a little glass.
Excellent.
You went above and beyond, got your name on it, and just a little token of appreciation for you.
It's amazing. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. You can, whatever your choice of drink, whether it's water or something stronger, you go for it.
Lots of coffee.
Yeah.
Really lots of coffee.
Yeah. There you go. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is Josh Carstens, and I went above and beyond.
Real deals, authentic connections, the kind that heals from Palm Springs to Pine Top Grace. APN's network spans every place. Above Par Network, we're going above and beyond, reaching new heights. In networking realms, scaling the heights. From mixers to golf, our spirits unite. APN's the beacon, our guiding light. So here's to APN, where dreams align. In every connection, a chance to shine. Above and beyond, we'll always strive. In APN's network, we truly thrive.
Like, share, and subscribe to Above and Beyond, where excellence meets elevation. Elevate your mindset, one episode at a time.